Hey, what's up guys? How are you? So basically today I'm just gonna talk about well, based on the title, you already know what I'm gonna talk about. How I made over $100,000 last month wholesaling in the hardest markets. For those of you who follow me on TikTok, you know I'm talking about New York and New Jersey. And the one thing I always hear about, and the one thing I even say online, is people always say, like, New York and New Jersey are the worst markets ever. But the reason why it's impossible is because people say it's too competitive, too expensive, and you can't win if you start here. And I'm just here to tell you that last month alone, I made over $100,000 here. And I'm basically going to show you how I did it. You know, like I always say in every video, I'm not making $1 million a month. I'm just a regular person. I didn't finish college. I didn't come from a rich family. I literally, and I'll show you guys right here, bro, like I was lost, man. I was playing video games, doing construction, and when I was living in a fucking trailer. I'm nothing special in the sense that, you know, I didn't have all the resources given to me, and I was still able to do deals in the market that people always say, like, it's the hardest market to get into. Everybody always told me that it was impossible to wholesale, but hey, man, fast forward now in 2025, I was literally able to do over $100,000. And I'm not even lying. Like, you can Photoshop the Chase account, but you can't Photoshop the HUD statement. So that's what I always say. Before I even talk about how I was able to, like, accomplish this, like, there's a reason why people say it's the hardest market. And I want to show this to everybody because, you know, statistically, if I wasn't able to make it, but I was still able to do deals, then just imagine all the markets that you guys are in. Imagine you're in smaller cap markets, markets that people are teaching you to invest in or teaching you to wholesale in. If you use these strategies, trust me, bro, if I was able to wholesale and make money in the hardest market, then you can literally use the exact same strategy and implement it in any market that you're in, and you're gonna win. You're gonna have I'm gonna give you everything in this video, and you're gonna have that system in place. You just plug it. It's a plug and play. And the reason why they always say, you know, New York and New Jersey is the toughest markets is because based on the stats that you see here, I mean, the median home prices are so high. I mean, prices are sky high. You know, the US average is only 420,000. So what basically means is sellers are always going to want top dollar, especially in our market, in my market especially. You know, they're always asking for higher deposits. And because of this, it basically makes it harder for people to start, because essentially when they first start and they don't know that they can negotiate deposits, but typically you're talking about like minimum like 5K, 5 to 10K. And sometimes if you're dealing with like a savvy seller, they're gonna want like 20% of the market price of the sale price. I mean, you know, this is like one of the reasons why it's like the hardest market. Another thing is, like, prices are rising so fast and so high, it just makes it harder to lock in discounts because sellers already know that the market is hot and they're always expecting offers. And on top of that, you got low inventory. Basically, fewer houses available means more competition for every property. So you're competing with buyers and flippers, right? People that want to rent it out, or people that are looking to flip, or people that work for hedge funds, and they're essentially, you know, just running ads trying to find like the same deals that you guys are looking for. And this is something I've been dealing with, right? I'm a small fish in a big pond, meaning that there's bigger sharks in my market, and I'm still able to compete. I'm still able to get deals. Why? Because of the skill set and the systems that I have. The reason I'm able to make this amount of money is because due to competition being fierce, but there's not a lot of volume competition. So that's the only good thing, because a lot of people, they stay away from this market only because it is very intrusive, and also it is very competitive, that you're dealing with like bigger companies. But at the same time, because there's only so many calls they can make and so many people they can reach out to, if you reach out to that seller and you are able to get out them under contract, you're gonna get a nice deal. So that's why, like, I always say, like, it's a sales game, because wholesalers have to negotiate harder and move faster just to compete. This is basically just a graph, just to kind of illustrate more of what I'm talking about. And then there's obviously logistical challenges too. That's just beyond numbers. You're talking about, you know, New York, that's an attorney state, and even New Jersey, where I'm at, like northern New Jersey, every transaction typically runs through an attorney, which adds delays. Instead of getting it under contract same day, you may have to wait like a month of negotiation just based on what the contract says. That essentially means higher costs and more potential deal killers. Higher costs because your deposits are typically higher. You can't get away with putting any money down. You got to put at least a minimum, like I said, 5,000. But if you're able to be good at negotiating, sometimes you can put like 1,000 or 2,000. When it comes to assignment laws, you can assign, but you have to put a disclosure. Same thing, you have to put that assignment clause there. There's a lot of disclosure requirements. So if you're doing novation, you have to also add in that you're doing novation. What is novation? You gotta be very in depth because, like I said, you're dealing with attorneys that are strict. It's different than other states because in our state, you can't really be too flexible. Another reason why logistically people say like you can't wholesale in New York or New Jersey is because of property taxes, insurance, and maintenance in the Northeast are significantly more expensive. Essentially, it means just shrinking margins. A lot of investors, they're gonna try to buy houses at a fair price, but also because they're trying to buy houses at a fair price, you're not able to find any cash buyers. Most of these buyers are going through hard money or private money. And that alone causes friction because now they're dependent on someone else, right? They're dependent on essentially their lender. And if you're not getting it at a good price, you're never going to be able to sell it or assign it to anybody else. And obviously, and also earnest deposits. I've been able to do deals here where the deposits, you get attorneys telling you like, hey man, you got to put like 20% down. And it's crazy because in the beginning, I used to lose deals because of that. But then when you realize that everything is negotiable, you're able to, speak with them and get them to drop down significantly. But for people that don't know, or people just starting, due to the high property values, you're dealing with like savvy sellers and also their attorneys who often require larger deposits just to ensure that you, the buyer, are serious. And the worst thing that people always talk about that I've been able to kind of, go around is no inspection contingencies. So like in New York, it's common for buyers to inspect before signing. It's crazy, right? It sounds crazy. But once you're locked in, and I'm actually dealing with a property right now where I literally dropped 11 G's and it's a non-refundable deposit. So essentially you're forced to perform, and even if you can't perform, you're going to lose that deposit. Now that I kind of showed you, like I gave you more context of what like I'm dealing with and like what other people are dealing with in like the hardest markets, like how is it that a kid like me who literally was a loser playing video games every night, then I decided to work, but since I didn't really have a college education, I just went into construction and literally like I was living in a trailer. Like how is it that this kid with no resources, no connections, didn't come from a rich family, how is it that me was able to do this? So I'm gonna show you exactly. And the one thing that I wish I knew back in the day, because I literally figured this out this year in 2025, is sales. It took me 4 years to figure this out because I'll be honest with you guys, I was not taking this business serious. I was half-assing it. I was just treating it like a hobby and it was hurting me to the point where I essentially was losing money, was basically running out of business because one thing, I wasn't treating it like a business, and two, I didn't have the right skill sets, and three, I didn't have the right systems. So the one thing I wish I knew back in the day was sales. You have to master sales. And especially if you're in these harder markets, you really have to be good on the phone. Because one thing is like if you're not good on the phone, it doesn't matter what type of strategy you have, you're always going to fail and you're never going to get a deal under contract. So being exceptional on the phone is going to make you 10 times better than everybody else. Trust me. If you are exceptional on the phone, if you know how to talk to sellers, if you know how to frame your questions, if you know how to really dig deep and find what really is their motivation and why they need to sell, what has them selling, what has them thinking of selling, like how long, what is their time frame, and are they the only decision maker? If you're able to get all that information out of them, then everything is negotiable. And I always say, like, one thing I learned in this market is I learned how to negotiate like an attorney. I learned how to frame myself, how to frame my questions, how to frame my offers. And you add that with confidence and conviction, sellers are gonna trust you to close. Like, I'm always on the phone now. At this point in time, like, I'm on the phone where a seller knows I can close. And even if I'm wholesaling it, they know subconsciously that I can close. It's not that you want a seller to assume you have money. You want to be so good on the phone that a seller knows you have money. And that's the major factor and the major difference that's going to make you like not getting any deals to basically getting all the deals that you come in contact with. Because one thing I realized, like wholesaling in these harder markets, is that people sell based on feeling rather than logic. Obviously, everything's logical, but most of these people, these sellers, are getting themselves into sticky situations due to feeling because they always live their life that way. So this is no difference. There is no difference in this. And so you have to understand that if you're able to accentuate that motivation that they told you, if you're able to dig deep and double down on it, you're able to really get everything that you get in contact with under contract, as long as you're able to get them to accept your offer. And that's essentially what separates everybody from the 90%, right? And that's what's going to separate you. Because if you're like in these other markets where like it's just a numbers game, you kind of just throw offers and like, oh, like after 30, 40 offers, you get it under contract. If you just master sales and master that skill set alone, like you don't have to wait 30 offers to get one deal. You literally can cut that in half and start getting deals like every 15 to 20 offers. And just imagine just adding an extra deal every month or extra 2 deals. Or if you're just starting, it's perfect because now you know, like, hey, like if you really practice sales, like you don't have to go through the stress like me, like had to spend a year calling, not knowing what to say, how to say it and everything. Like it would have, like now, like if I go to a different market, and like for you that follow me in Texas, I literally got to do in 1 month. So it's just something that I wish I knew. And hopefully this is something that you guys know as well. So that's one. The second thing you need is building a repeatable system. So one thing I always tell people is like you need a CRM. Right? If you want something free, you can use Podio. One thing that I don't like about Podio is it's not very user-friendly. And also, if you wanted to build like if you really wanted to build automations and build like a dashboard and everything, and notifications and drips, you have to do that yourself. One thing I actually started implementing is RE Simply. Other people I see are using Go High Level. And there's more flexibility, it's more user-friendly, but if you wanted just to get something for free, I would just start with Podio. And one thing about Podio and every other CRM is one thing you should be doing also is tracking your KPIs as well. And that's one thing I wish I knew is like when I first started, I wish I tracked like my calls and my conversations and the offers I was making and the deals I was getting, because when you're starting off, especially if you're dealing with like harder markets, you have to really understand as everything is sales, but also at the same time, you have to track your numbers. You have to treat it like a formula because every deal that you do, you can always work backwards from it. So if it took me like let's say you're on a dialer and it took you, just throwing numbers, like it took you like 5,000 dials. But out of 5,000 dials, you got like 1,000 conversations in a month. Just throwing numbers. And then out of 1,000 conversations, let's say you got 50 process calls, meaning, you were able to get the condition, the motivation and everything else. And then out of those 50 process calls, you got 30 offers. And out of those 30 offers, you got 5 accepted offers, 3 under contract, and then 1 closed deal. Like you want to track this. Because the reason you want to track all these metrics is because if, let's say, we finally get that closed deal, it took you like 5,000 dials and 1,000 conversations. So then you can kind of work backwards and you can see like, okay, out of those 5,000 dials, how come I only got 1,000 conversations? You want to find like the bottleneck between these two. And let's say you're able to raise this up to 2,000. Out of 2,000 conversations, maybe you only got 100 like process calls. And then you kind of want to figure out, okay, what's the bottleneck here? How come after 2,000 conversations, I got 100 process calls? Like I connected with 2,000, let's say in a month I connected with 2,000 people, but from 2,000 people, I only got 100 process calls. Maybe I can get more. How can I get 200 process calls? Because obviously it's a sales game, right? So you have to kind of understand like, okay, what is it that I'm doing in between? Like, what is it that I can do where I can increase the next part? And that's ultimately going to increase the amount of deals you do within the month. So that's just something that I wish I knew. And something I wish that I'd done before, because I wasn't doing that in like the first 3 years. I think I just started doing that like literally last year. And the one thing about tracking every lead is now you can build a system where you can follow up with every single lead and account for everything. And another reason why I wanted to make this video is because right now, like, interest rates are dropping. So the market was pretty tight. And that's what, it's crazy because I was able to do deals like now, like where the market is like the buyers aren't there, the sellers are trying to sell, but there's not a lot of buyers. But now there's a shift coming. The Fed is talking about cutting the rates 2 more times before the year ends. So essentially, you're going to see a surge of buyers, and that means you're going to find more opportunities. And if anything, if you can have this in place, like just these two, especially before the year ends, like you guys are going to be ahead of the game, and you guys are going to be able to basically come in, get more deals, and make more money. So going back, one thing I would say is, becoming a sales machine and building a repeatable system. And then the last thing, and I think this is one of the things that I wish that no one really talks about, unless kind of like you have a mentor or you're kind of paid in a mastermind. One thing you really have to look into, and one thing that I did in my market that allowed me to get these deals, was leveraging. So one thing about me is that I'm like going against businesses and companies that have in-house callers, 10, 15 callers in-house, like in the US, like US callers, calling sellers and closing them. But if you're just starting off, obviously you don't have the capital, right? You don't have the capital to be paying $1,500 a month and plus bonuses to all your sales agents that are in-house. So how was I able to build a sales team? And one thing, and this is a secret hack actually that no one talks about, is building a virtual team and implementing AI. And this is something I'm actually working on now, improving it. Because the thing about it now is that you're able to go against the big dogs. You're able to go against these bigger companies because we have AI. And especially a lot of these big companies, they're kind of old school. They're not really implementing AI as much, only because they already have a system in place. But if you're coming in new, you can take advantage of that. Because like I showed in my previous videos, AI literally can text, can call. Not only that, but it knows a seller's intention. It's able to book appointments 24/7, following up without burning out. And then the beautiful thing about that is that if you add that with a virtual team, and one thing I did before is I actually hired virtual assistants from the Philippines and from Latin America. And what the virtual assistants essentially do, if you train them good enough, AI can essentially just filter these leads, and then the virtual assistants can just qualify them even further and close them to the point where, like, if you're a closer yourself, you can just focus on the hot leads. You don't even have to touch cold leads anymore. I just focus on hot leads. I just focus on, like, literally, like, I built a system where AI filters. Literally I get a list from PropStream. I plug it into Go High Level. I have AI into it. AI is filtering these leads daily. I have a virtual assistant that's calling them, further qualifying them, making offers, and then sending the agreement and reviewing it with them. And then from that point on, I'm just focusing on those leads. I'm just following up with them, making sure they sign, making sure they read, all the sections and all the contingencies that we want accepted. And I'll even hop on a call with them to review it one more time and get them to sign right there. But the thing you want to do this is because when you're building leverage, you're not wasting so much energy. That's the one thing that was hurting me, because I was essentially just calling every day, like cold calling every day. But once I started implementing a virtual team, and this year, once I started implementing AI with it, the amount of time you save is crazy. And it's not even that expensive. If you know what you're doing, you literally can build a sales team just as good as someone who's paying like 10 agents, $1,500 each. And that's essentially what I'm doing, and that's essentially how I'm making deals in the so-called hardest markets. So it's just something that I don't see people talking about, and I do see bigger companies now trying to implement this. They just don't know how to. To go back to this, because I'll literally show you like what I'm doing, and this is real time. When I talk about data, like you can pull a list from Deal Machine. I heard a lot of good things about Deal Machine. What I use is PropStream. And a little bonus hack that a lot of people don't talk about is DataFlick. DataFlick, they actually use the AI to find like high quality motivated leads. It does cost a little bit. So for my market, it's like $1,500 a month just for 2 counties. So it is a bit on the expensive side, but what I always say is data does matter. And I've been able to get most of my deals. I would say like 80% of my deals do come from this. And then 20% comes from PropStream. But PropStream, I feel like, is similar to Deal Machine and PropWire. But they're both good. If you're just starting off, I think PropWire is free. And I think PropStream, I think with just 90, you can pull like 10,000 leads. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But PropStream, I think it's like the basic price is like 99 a month for like 10 or 20,000 leads you can pull. And Deal Machine, I heard good things about it, but I just haven't used it yet. And if you're just starting off, because like I'm just teaching people like how to wholesale in the hardest market. But if you're like in a easier market than New York and New Jersey, but there's no attorneys involved or the sellers are more cool with you like wholesaling and everything, like bro, if you just implement the system, like you could probably get like a deal in the first 30 days. And the one thing I always tell people who always ask me, like, oh, okay, but like where do I get the data? Like how do I get it? If you check my previous video, I talk about niche data. You want to have a niche data when you're starting off, because when you're starting off, you want to focus on, like, you can't call so many people at once, only because you don't have enough people to handle all that volume. So you really want to make sure you filter it down where you think you will get the most motivated leads. And I would kind of just focus on like 2 to 3K. So like I would just focus on 2 to 3K leads, and I would filter by like pre-foreclosures, tax delinquency, like mix it with tax delinquency, out-of-state owners who own the property like 15 years or more, and equity is like 40% and higher. Like you got to be that specific. And then, you know, obviously check your market or your state. If it's a lot, if it's maybe still like here, like we did Chicago, it's like 890,000. Like that's way too much. Like you want to drop it down to at least like 3K. You want to be very niche, because the more motivated they are, and if you treat every lead as one, you're going to have the higher advantage. Because of one thing about bigger companies, especially me, like let's say, and I'm not that big of a company, but I'm pulling big lists, but we're not treating every call, we're just trying to detect motivation and we move on. But since you're new, or since you're just starting off, like every lead you treat as one, and you can basically detect more motivation because you're treating it as like, okay, this could be the next deal. And that's the higher advantage that you have. And the one thing I would suggest, right, because I was able to do this with just texting and cold calling, believe it or not. And most of my deals come from these two. And if I were to start over again, right, or if you guys want to copy this system, what I always tell people is use Go High Level. In Go High Level, right, they have their own AI system that you can implement. I haven't used it, and I'm not sure how good it is. What I essentially did is I just created a workflow, and I just implemented AI into SMS, where AI is essentially responding back to these leads and booking appointments. Like it'll literally book the appointment for me, and when it books the appointment, it'll notify me via Gmail, Slack, and I'll even get a text. So I know it's like, oh, you know what? I got notified. Okay, I'm going to call this person ASAP. Like the beautiful thing is, and I haven't gotten into it, but with AI, and like I said, with AI and a VA, like you don't even have to touch it, because now the VA is going to go in there to further qualify the lead. So that's what makes it very, very beautiful. And once you further qualify it, you put it in your CRM, whether that's Podio or Go, or let's say you're using Go High Level as well. What I started implementing was RE Simply. All the leads that I basically filter, I put them in RE Simply, and there's different like filters that you have, which makes it nice. But you can actually do this in Go High Level too, if let's say you're not trying to spend money, because RE Simply is a little bit more on the expensive side. But Go High Level, you can obviously do it as well. And then another thing is cold calling. So cold calling still works wonders for me. But the thing about cold calling is that you have to be good on the phone. Or if you're hiring VAs, you have to make sure their English is really good, and you have to make sure they understand the process. And they understand that if you're cold calling now, you have to understand that it's not just a script. It's how you frame yourself in the conversation. One thing I learned, especially, you know, getting deals in these higher end markets, is that the first 7 seconds matter a lot. And you really, really have to be good on the phone. Like when you get on the phone, you have to basically like you gotta be confident. Like if I was cold calling right now, I would basically tell people like, hey, this is Rich, is John there? Or sometimes I even, so when they pick up, I just say their name, like, oh, hey John, are you there? And then they say like, yeah, who's this? Like, yeah, this is actually Rich. I didn't mean to bother you, but my name's Rich. I'm from Fast Home Buyers, and we were actually just buying in the area and weren't sure if you may have been open to selling your property at so and so. We kind of just saw it passing by. I'm not sure if you ever thought of a proposal. You see, so it's based on tonality. It's based on how you frame like that first question, and not every conversation is going to start off well, but then that's why I always say you got to work on sales, because depending on how they answer, you have to be ready for that. And sometimes the script really can't teach you that. You have to build a framework for your market. But once you have that hand packed, I would say cold calling, man. Cold calling is it still works. And you can use batch dialer. What I use is ready mode. And the cool thing about ready mode is that you literally can do like 10 dials at once. And what I basically do is I have like 2 to 3 VAs from the Philippines. They're essentially are calling like 8 hours a day, like Monday to Friday. And you can literally find like VAs for $3-5 an hour, but really, really top tier VAs. You can find like top tier VAs that have like no crazy accent and they understand like exactly what to say. And with that, they're also pushing these leads into your CRM. So your CRM, you're kind of just pushing filtered leads. You're not pushing like any cold or dead leads. You're just filtering these leads out first, and then you're just pushing them to the CRM. The CRM is essentially for leads that are possible deals. You don't want to put all your leads in there. You just want to put basically leads that could possibly be a deal. And I'll even give you guys a bonus. If you guys are trying to hire like good VAs, I always put a job posting. You could literally put a job posting in Upwork. You could search for VAs, but I wouldn't suggest that. I would do a job posting and they would essentially apply to your position or the position you're hiring for. And that's when you can basically filter them out and use AI with them as well, because that's what I do. Not only do they cold call, but they're also filtering further with anyone that's booking the appointments. I have my agent calling them and then sending them to the CRM as well. So that's essentially how I'm getting deals here in the New York, New Jersey market. And I'll even give you some bonus secrets too, since we're at it, because I made this on the fly too. So one thing about, like, if you're really trying to hire like really good people, I would say like you really got to interview like 150 people. I would say like 150 people on Upwork. And the reason you want to do this is because you kind of want to get good at interviewing virtual assistants. You want to distinguish between a good virtual assistant and a bad virtual assistant. And a cool like little hack that I do is I always require voice recording before a Zoom meeting. You don't want to waste your time, because it's 150 people is a lot, but 150 people is enough to find like 5 really, really good VAs, like VAs that you could pay maybe $4 or $5 an hour, and maybe someone else might pay $8 an hour for. So you want to interview like 150 people on Upwork, but you also want to require them to send you a voice recording, because you don't want to waste your time with people that you're not even going to hire in the first place. So you want to do that before even hopping on a meeting. And essentially you can filter them by accent and English fluency. So what I basically tell them is like, oh yeah, send me a recording introducing yourself, and also send me a recording of how you would speak with a seller, how you would cold call a seller that you were trying to buy their house. And then from those recordings, you're able to distinguish, okay, you know what, she sounds really good. Let me see, what she's about. Another thing is that a lot of people, like, if you're like starting to hire virtual assistants, I would really look into Time Doctor. Time Doctor is pretty cool because it tracks like mouse and keyboard activity. It takes screenshots, and you're able to pay based on verified activity rather than idle time. So Time Doctor is really good. You're able to basically, like, you're basically able to tell if they're working or not. If you're trying to hold them accountable for them actually doing the work, that's essentially holding them accountable. And it also, like, you're not going to get played. And then this is actually a pretty cool one that I don't see a lot of people talk about, but I'm actually doing this for myself, KPI specialist. So I'm just having one VA dedicated only to tracking KPIs. Because one thing I've realized is like I'm getting more busier like working outside of the business rather than inside of the business. So now we literally have like a VA just reviewing calls and tracking like individual performances. So she's gonna figure out essentially like if let's say one person was doing really good. Let's say we had three cold callers. Like if we had three cold callers and one of the cold callers had like 40 web forms, but then the other one had like 15. So if this person had 15 web forms compared to the one that's working really good at 40, like what is it that they're messing up on? Is it because they're not showing up at work, or is it because their conversations are low, or they're not making enough calls? So the reason you want to have like a VA dedicated to just tracking KPIs is because she's able to track them. He or she would be able to track them daily, and you're able to find a bottleneck instantly rather than monthly. And that's one thing I realized that I've been kind of messing up on, that I'm working on now, is that I'm not really strict on tracking KPIs every day or every week. It's just I track like the scorecards and everything, but I haven't really held anybody accountable. And now bringing on a VA that's dedicated only to tracking KPIs, she's able to give you reports daily. So when she figures out, or when she finds out that like one person isn't really working, or maybe one person isn't converting, you're able to go back and essentially see, okay, is it because the list is bad? Is it because they're not showing up on time? Is it because they're not doing the work? Or is it because they just aren't converting? And then you're able to figure out like where you have to change or what you have to do, and you're able to do it instantly rather than waiting for like that one VA to never like to figure out like, oh man, they've been like this for 3 months and I just figured out now. Having a VA that just solely focus on performance, like that's gonna be a game changer. And literally it is a game changer, because I literally just hired one like 2 days ago, and I found like 2 VAs that aren't doing what they're supposed to because they are spending way too much time on the dispo side. Like they finish a call and they spend literally a minute and a half before changing it to the next call. So it's like things like that I'm just starting to realize. And then the last thing that I wish someone told me that allowed me to finally get deals in the hardest market is having that A-player mindset. So anybody that I hire now, we limit absences. Because if you have people that don't show up, performance is obviously going to drop, and essentially you're dealing with B and C players. So you don't want to have that when you start hiring like virtual assistants or in-house callers. Like you want to make sure that these people are hungry, that they really want to win. They come here to win, not just for like a check or anything like that. To find those A-type players, I mean, it takes time. And that's why it goes back to like hiring 100 to 150 people on Upwork, because not all of them are going to be good. Out of like 150 interviews, you're only going to find like 3 really solid people. And that's why you want to hire slow, but fire fast. If someone is not performing or keeping up, you want to fire them and let them go, because your team's energy directly affects your business's results. But yeah, that's essentially it. I know a lot of you talk to me about like how I'm doing it in New York and New Jersey market and how am I wholesaling. And essentially it's because of this. It's just this system right here. And if you aren't in the New York, New Jersey market, if you're like in a more like simple market than I'm in, then bro, this is the system you guys should use or test out at least. Because this is a system that I'm implementing currently, like in real time. And this is a system that's working for me. This is a system that essentially got me finally over 100,000 last month. Hopefully this helps somebody. Just try to make a quick video. I planned it a little bit, but hopefully I didn't confuse anybody. And if you have any more questions, you're more than welcome to comment below or hit me up on IG. Peace.